precisely 1:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Romesh Peris and read by Sabrina Zawahir. The headlines. The head of state arrives at the parliament to attend the ongoing sessions. The inter-province travel ban further extended. Inter-provincial public transport still not in operation. The vaccine drive for students aged 16 to 19 to commence from today. The Ministry of Health says entire population over the age of 30 have been inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine. The Minister of Education praises the education authorities for commencing the primary section grades. The Ministry of Agriculture certifies quality of nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer. The leader of the UNP says youth will be called upon to take the leadership of UNP to take the party and the country to a new era. The new US envoy calls on America to build relationship with Sri Lanka. And in world news, regional powers back aid for Afghanistan as Russia hosts Taliban. And in sports news, Sri Lanka through to Super 12 after thumping win over Ireland. Now the local news in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa arrived at the Parliament to attend the ongoing sessions this morning. Parliament sittings commenced today at 10 a.m. and time was allotted in taking up questions for oral answers from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Several amendment bills are scheduled to be taken up for debate today. Accordingly, the Code of Criminal Procedure, regulations under the Civil Procedure Code, Youthful Offenders Bill and the Penal Code Bill will be debated. Meanwhile, an adjournment debate on the current fertilizer crisis in the country will be held in Parliament today. Parliament is scheduled to convene today and tomorrow. The adjournment debate moved by the opposition will be taken up between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. later in the day. The commander of Sri Lanka Army, General Shavendra Silva, stated that President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has directed relevant authorities to continue ongoing interprovincial travel restrictions until 4 a.m. until October 31st. The ban was to be lifted today, but has now been extended till 4 a.m. on 31st October. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Transport emphasizes that public transport services have still not been made operational due to the extension of the travel restrictions between provinces. The Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, says the vaccination of school children aged 16 to 19 years against COVID-19 commenced across the country today. He said that the students in this age group can obtain the vaccines from their respective schools throughout the country. Accordingly, the Director General of Health Services, Dr. Asela Gunawardena, said students of this age group will receive the dose of the Pfizer vaccine administered under the COVID vaccination program of the Ministry of Health. It is also reported that students between the ages of 16 to 19 years who are affected by the travel restrictions can obtain the Pfizer vaccine from the nearest school. The Ministry of Health says that Sri Lanka's entire population over the age of 30 have been inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine. The Minister of Health, Keheliya Rambukwala, said that 57% of the people between the ages of 20 and 30 have already been vaccinated with at least a single dose. Meanwhile, steps have been taken to provide the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine to school children between the ages of 18 and 19, covering all districts of the country from today. Professor Shaman Rajendrajit, president of the Institute of Pediatricians, said that the vaccination program for children of the relevant age group in the Colombo district was successfully implemented. The Ministry of Agriculture stated that it denies reports that nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer imported from India is not a quality fertilizer that has been properly certified. Its secretary, Professor Udita Jayasinghe, stated that about 11,000 researchers in India have confirmed the standard and the quality of these nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizers. Meanwhile, the distribution of nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer to farmers will commence from today. The Fertilizer Secretariat stated that the distribution will be done through agrarian service centres after the quality of the liquid fertilizers is confirmed by the sample test reports. Accordingly, steps have been taken to send the relevant stocks of liquid fertilizer from the central warehousing complex of the Colombo Commercial Fertilizer Company at Hunupitia, Vattala, to its regional warehouses from last afternoon. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing local news, the United National Party leader, the former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe, says the UNP is to be handed over to a youthful team which will take the party and the nation to a new era, just like its founder leader, late Prime Minister D.S. Senanayake did. Speaking during a program held at Sirikota to mark the 177th birth anniversary of late Prime Minister D.S. Senanayake and to launch the party's new digital app, Mr. Wickremesinghe said youth will be called upon to take the leadership of UNP in order to take the party and the country to a new era and create a future for the younger generation. President Joe Biden nominees and U.S. envoy to Sri Lanka, Julie Chong, has called on America to build constructive relationships with Sri Lanka. Julie Chong, during a congressional hearing on Wednesday, told members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that Sri Lanka is positioned in a strategic location at the heart of the Indian Ocean and its critical ports with access to global maritime lanes and trading routes play a pivotal role in free and open Indo-Pacific architecture. Chong said this reinforces the necessity for the United States to build constructive relationships with Sri Lanka, including with civil society, the private sector, and the Sri Lankan people. The Secretary to the President and the Agriculture Secretary have advised to secure a court order to suspend payments to the Chinese company that shipped organic fertilizer to Sri Lanka, which was rejected for containing harmful pathogens. The State Ministry of Agriculture noted the necessary files were handed over to the Attorney General to pursue legal action as well. 99,000 metric tons of organic fertilizer was ordered from the Chinese company, and recently 20,000 metric tons reached Sri Lanka. However, the State Ministry of Agriculture noted that as tests proved the said fertilizer was not suitable for Sri Lanka, the fertilizer was rejected. Therefore, the State Ministry said the payments would have to be temporarily suspended until the investigations are over. The first ever sextuplet birth was reported at a private hospital in Colombo as a 31-year-old mother gave birth to 6 babies. The mother is a resident of the Angoda area. The babies were delivered by caesarean sections early this morning under the guidance of Professor Tiran Dias. The mother has given birth to 3 boys and 3 girls. Hospital sources said that the mother and the infants are in good health and doing well. That ends local news. Next up is the main news story.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Vedha Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedha Mahatmya.
The Minister of Education, Dinesh Gunawardena, praised education authorities for commencing the primary section grades 1 to 5 in schools with less than 200 students today, based on the continued discussions in recent days and agreements reached today by the Ministry of Education and the provincial governors. The Ministry of Education said in a statement the health regulations and school health guidelines of the Ministry of Health, 3,000 schools are to be started in the first phase. The special discussion was attended by governors, provincial chief secretariats, provincial secretaries of education and provincial directors of education from all 9 provinces of the country. That was our main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedha Mahatmya. brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
And now in Watch Light.
Vehicular movement at Kohuala Junction on Horona-Colombo Road will be limited temporarily from today, except for public transport buses. The decision was taken due to the construction work of the Kohuala flyover, and the motorists are requested to alternative routes as much as possible. According to the Road Development Authority, this vehicular movement restriction is expected to last until the 20th of December. That came to you in Watchlight.
World News.
The headlines of the world news. Regional powers back aid for Afghanistan as Russia hosts Taliban. The UN Environment Programme says fossil fuel plants out of sync. South Korea to join space race with launch of first homegrown rocket. Now the world news in detail. Afghanistan's new Taliban rulers won backing from 10 regional powers at talks in Moscow for the idea of a United Nations donor conference to help the country stave off economic collapse and a humanitarian catastrophe. On Wednesday, Russia, China, Pakistan, India, Iran and formerly Soviet Central Asian states Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan joined the Taliban in calling for the UN to convene such a conference as soon as possible to help rebuild the country. They said it should take place with the understanding that the main burden should be borne by the forces whose military contingents have been present in this country over the past 20 years. Officials with the United Nations Environment Programme say fossil fuel production is dangerously out of sync with targets. They filed a report on Wednesday saying that oil and gas producers need to cut their output in half. World leaders want to limit the rise by 2030 in global average temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius. UN officials expect production will reach more than double the level required to meet that target. World leaders will gather at the end of the month in Glasgow, Scotland, for the UN Climate Change Conference. South Korea is set to jumpstart its space program today when it conducts the first test launch of its domestically built rocket. The 3-stage KSLV-2 Nuri rocket, emblazoned with South Korea's flag and carrying a dummy satellite, is scheduled for blast-off at 7 GMT from the Nero Space Center, nearly 500 kilometers south of Seoul. The Nuri, which means world, is designed to put 1.5-ton payloads into orbit 600 kilometers to 800 kilometers above the Earth and has been 10 years in development at a cost of $1.6 billion. That ends World News. Prior to concluding, the headlines of the World News once again. Regional powers back aid for Afghanistan as Russia hosts Taliban. The UN Environment Programme says fossil fuel plants out of sync. South Korea to join space race with launch of first homegrown rocket. With that, we conclude the world news. Next up is the development news.
And now in development news.
China is to invest $800 million in Sri Lanka on 400 megawatt renewable energy projects. The Sri Lankan embassy in China said that China National Energy Engineering and Construction Company Limited has offered to invest $800 million on the projects in Sri Lanka. The ambassador of Sri Lanka to China, Dr. Kohana, visited the massive KE electric plant in Shujewong, producing a range of equipment for the generation and distribution of electricity. Attention was particularly focused on generating and distributing electricity from solar energy. That ends development news.
Sports news.
Sports news, it's cricket. Sri Lanka made it 2 wins out of 2 in round 1 of the ICC Men's T20 World Cup with a thorough all-round performance against Ireland. For the second game in a row, Sri Lanka survived an early scare to record a commanding win. This time, Ireland were at a receiving end. Andrew Belburney men stumped by 70 runs as Sri Lanka guaranteed safe passage to the Super 12s. A superb all-round performance by Vanindu Hasaranga, who smashed 71 of 40 balls and doubled with figures of 4-0, 12-1, rescued his side from the perilous position of 8 for 3, first carrying them to 171 before helping Skittle Island out for 101. Ireland will need to shake off the disappointment from a day that began so brightly for them and turn their attention towards their final game this round, a knockout against Namibia, with the victor joining Sri Lanka in the Super 12. That ends Sports News.
Cash through NSB globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSB Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSB Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners. From October 1st, 2021 to September 30th, 2022. Remit a minimum of $100 or an equivalent amount in any foreign currency through NSB U Trust for 6 months consecutively. Send more money and increase the chances of winning.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Setting the record straight on the rising use of virtual currencies, which are also known as cryptocurrencies, the central bank said that the users ought to assume the risks associated in dealing with such currencies, as there is neither regulatory oversight nor any legal recourse should they fall victim by engaging with such currencies. To make the public aware of the risks, the central bank in April issued a press communique listing down the significant and multiple risks associated with dealing in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum and Litecoin. That ends Business News.
Business news. Sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Cash through NSB globally and win wonderful gifts locally. Will you be the lucky winner of the NSB Golden Jubilee? 50 gold sovereigns for the top prize winner of the NSB Golden Jubilee. Scooters for the 10 second prize winners. iPhones for the 10 third prize winners. Mountain bikes for the 29 fourth prize winners.
Economic news. Courtesy of
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Data show Sri Lanka's imports hit $1.68 billion in September 2021 amid record money printing, the highest since 2018, when money was also printed losing forex reserves. The surge in imports came despite import controls. Up to August, imports were 13.4 billion rupees, up from 10.25 billion rupees in 2020 and also up from 12.88 billion rupees in the pre-pandemic 2019. In 2019, the central bank did not print money until August and collected forex reserves running deflationary policy. Imports were 15 billion rupees up to September in 2018. Imports grew in 2021 despite controls. That ends Economic News.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, brings Nanasa app, a trilingual educational mobile app for online learning with video-based lessons from grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with the Nanasa app. No subscription fees. Download via Google Play Store, App Store, Huawei Store or Windows. Dialogue, the future today.
Finally, it's a look at the weather report. The Met Department forecasts showers or thunder showers to occur over most parts of the island in the afternoon. Heavy showers above 100 millimeters can be expected at some places in the central, Sabaragamuwa, north central, northwestern and Uva provinces. Showers or thunder showers are likely in the western and southern coastal areas during the morning too. The Met Department cautions the general public to take adequate precautions to minimize damages caused by temporarily localized strong winds and lightning during thunder showers. That was the weather report.
Weather report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, brings Nanasa app, a trilingual educational mobile app for online learning with video-based lessons from grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with the Nanasa app. No subscription fees. Download via Google Play Store, App Store, Huawei Store or Windows. Dialogue, the future today.
Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. The head of state arrives at the parliament to attend the ongoing sessions. The inter-province travel ban further extended. Inter-provincial public transport still not in operation. The vaccine drive for students aged 16 to 19 to commence from today. The Ministry of Health says entire population over the age of 30 have been inoculated with the COVID-19 vaccine. The Minister of Education praises the education authorities for commencing the primary section grades. The Ministry of Agriculture certifies quality of nano-nitrogen liquid fertilizer. The leader of the UNP says youth will be called upon to take the leadership of UNP to take the party and the country to a new era. The new U.S. envoy calls to America to build relationship with Sri Lanka. With that, we conclude the news. Over to my friend, and certainly yours as well, who's all geared up to keep you entertained with a wonderful collection of music indeed. Over to you, Heshma.